Julia, and we are going to do a Yin Yoga session, but we also need a fascia roll. So I really hope that you have one at home. If not, that's totally fine. You just sit those exercises then out. I give you other things to do during that time, and we're going to start in a seated position. As you know, I always like to sit a little higher because it's always nicer for the hips, yeah? Usually, because we sit most of the time during our day, we have really not a lot of range of motion in our hips, and that means that we, sit like this, or I don't know, like really rounding our back, and in general, it's really also hurting us to sit in an upright position for most people, right? Maybe you're not one of them, but most people I know actually do have an issue with being seated in a relaxed way on the floor. So I really and highly recommend to sit a little higher and to place a block underneath you. And now you just exhale, and when you exhale, you close your eyes just for a moment. You allow yourself to settle into this room, onto your mat. You do a tiny little check-in with yourself. See if you can connect with all the points in your body that are touching the ground right now. See if you can feel every single millimeter that is touching the ground right now. Maybe it's not just the ground, maybe you can expand to the block you're seated on, or maybe the blanket. And maybe you can expand a little further and also feel how your clothes are touching your skin. Maybe there is some air that is moving hairs on your body from right to left, left to right. When you connect with your inner self and see how it currently feels to sit here, maybe there are areas of tension you want to focus on just for a split second, and maybe because of that focus you're able to let go. Allow yourself to fully arrive in your body. Allow yourself to really feel and connect with yourself. And allow yourself to slow down. Very slowly open your eyes. If you have a roll, take the roll, and you get 2 minutes for each leg. So you start rolling on your lower part of the leg, yeah? So really start here. I will let you know when the time is up, yeah, when you should move, etc. For those of you who have no roll, who have nothing there that you could use, you simply bring the soles of the feet together, and then you fold forward from here, and you move into your butterfly. So you either go into a yin pose, or you really use this session as an active recovery. And now everyone who is rolling the lower part of the leg, you slowly start moving a little bit more upwards, And also you start rolling the upper leg, the upper part of the leg. Yeah? And here is not about the pace. Roll slowly. Take your time. Yeah, maybe you can also roll over to the side. Or maybe you feel, there is a point that actually makes it really intense and I really do feel it. Then you can stay there. Wonderful. And from here you slowly change sides. And the same thing applies on the other side. Yeah? When you start rolling, you really want to see, is there any area where you can feel some tension, where you feel like, oh, it's actually really nice to simply stay here. Yeah, then stay there. Maybe you feel like, you know what? I actually want to only use compression. I don't want to roll. That's also fine. Yeah, there's different ways of helping the muscle to recover. And especially the back side of our legs is an area where most of us really want to focus on because we're seated too much. We're running maybe, yeah, or maybe you do any other kind of sports. In general, the back side of the legs really deserve our attention. Now move the roll a little bit more up so that you can roll also your thigh. And here as well, if you feel like, oh, there is a point, then you can always stay there. Yeah, it can also be very intense to roll and really carry your own weight in your hands all the time. So you can always pause and use the pause to just do compression, or maybe you want to roll right, left, right, right. The only thing you want to do is check in with yourself and see how you feel. So for those of you who were in butterfly pose, come out, allow the legs to relax and do a tiny little counter pose here. Wonderful. And then we all move over into caterpillar pose. I highly recommend to sit a little higher. And then you simply bring the legs out in front of you. If you have the black roll or any other roll, you can also use it underneath your knees. And then fold forward here. Maybe you don't need the roll. Then you can also simply fold forward. Maybe you want to use the roll to lean your head on top of it. There's always different ways you can put your props to use. You never have to use your props, but you can. As always in Yin Yoga, you want to stay somewhere between 40 and 80% of your intensity. It's more important to actually stay in that pose instead of, going all in and then only be able to stay there for about 10 seconds or 30 seconds. And I really like to combine those tools because they really help us to recover in the best possible way. And I realized that most of us really don't have enough time. At least this is what we tell ourselves, right? There is never enough time for everything. But the good thing is that there is more and more research showing that we can combine certain things and still get all the benefits out of it. There shouldn't be any pain. And maybe you realize that after a while you can take the roll out, or maybe you have a bolster instead, or a cushion. Maybe you see that the body, or feel that the body is really allowing you to go a little deeper. What's important to keep in mind is there should never be any pain. And whenever you realize that the mind is wandering around you, bring it back. You allow yourself to always become and stay present. And then very, very slowly start coming out of your pose. If there is any counter pose you like to do, go ahead. Otherwise, you maybe want to go into a tiny little twist. Doesn't matter with which side you start. Just keep in mind to not have too much of a yang approach, but you really, want to bring the yin energy into your counter pose as well, allowing the body to rest and digest the pose, allowing the energy flow, the blood flow return back to normal, and then you also twist over to the other side. So it's really a more soft approach. You can even round your back a little bit more if that feels better to you. And then you slowly release. And if you have your roll, you can place it behind your back. And start rolling your back. Yeah? You can start with the lower back and slowly make yourself up to the top. Again, that maybe requires a little challenge. Yeah? Wonderful. You have still 90 seconds to go. And in case you have no roll, you can go straight into the yin pose where the rest will join you in a second. So you come into Sphinx pose, the elbows are somewhat underneath the shoulders, and you really want to relax it. You want to sink in your shoulders, you want to relax the belly, the heart. You also want to check in with your leg muscles and relax them. And I see that most of the time that people really keep the shoulder or the muscles around the shoulder blades and shoulder joints really tense. You want to relax them so you can really hang in the shoulder joints, yeah? So be curious, try that out. And for everyone else who is still rolling on the black roll or on any other roll, the fascia roll, yeah, really try to make yourself up to the top so that you roll somewhere around the chest region. And then you slowly release. You come down from your roll and you also find your way into Sphinx pose. So again, elbows are somewhat underneath the shoulders. You want to soften your shoulders. You really want to hang in, yeah? And you can use your roll to support your head width. But also, what you could do is to keep your head in the air. Keeping your head in the air doesn't mean that you want to engage any other muscles in and around the shoulders. Try to soften the shoulder region. Try to soften the neck region. Let the belly touch the floor. And once you've found your pose, you can also and always should check in with your legs. What are your legs doing? Or are you subconsciously engaging any muscles there, or are you relaxing them? And in case you are one of those who want to intensify the pose, you can also come into seal. That means you can place the palms on the floor, the thumbs are pointing forward, and the rest of the four fingers are pointing backwards. Not backwards, sorry. They point out to the side. And again, you want to hang in your shoulder joints. The more you bring your hands towards the upper body, the more intense it's going to be. Remember that you want to stay somewhere between 40 and 80%, and that you can decide of how intense you want to practice. You also decide if you want to go into seal at all, or if Sphinx pose is totally okay for you. We will stay for a couple more rounds of breath. Perfect time to check in and see how it feels and see what you need to relax. And then you slowly relax and release out of the pose. Maybe you simply want to lay down and really swing the hips right, left, right. Maybe you even want to bend the legs and allow the swing to move a little bit more. Maybe you feel more relaxation when you also bend the legs and use them as a pendulum. But again, as always, you can do whatever you like as a counter pose. And whilst you still stay in your counter pose, for the last pose, what you can do is maybe you have a cushion, maybe you have a bolster, or maybe you have nothing. That would be also totally fine. You're going to come into reclined butterfly. So you lay down onto your back. You bend the legs at any amount. You bring the soles of the feet together and you let the knees come out to the side. What you do with your arms is entirely up to you. Again, you could place a bolster underneath you, or maybe even a cushion, or whatever it is you have, whatever you feel comfortable doing. And when you have something underneath you, you could start to open your arms out to the side. Yeah, then you also have a heart opener here. You don't have to do it. You can practice this in a way that I'm doing it right now. You don't even need to have the legs or the feet very close to your sit bones. You can also move them a little further away. It really depends on what your hips are telling you. Really focus on your legs, really connect with yourself and see how that feels and what it does to you. For a lot of people it's really intense, and maybe you have blocks that you could use and place underneath your legs for support. In case you have something underneath you that is supporting a heart opener and you feel like this is actually really intense right now, you could also bring the hands together on top of your heart and signal the body and the heart that everything is okay. And then from here you slowly start to support the legs and coming all the way back together again. And then you move straight into your Shavasana from here. If you have a bolster underneath you, you can leave it there. You could also place it underneath the knees. You open the legs a tiny little bit so that they can be in a V shape. You can open the arms and let the palms face the ceiling. If you feel this is totally uncomfortable, you can of course also keep the legs bent and bring the knees together in a V shape. If this is still uncomfortable, you can always come into a seated position. You can lay over to the side. Only because someone said this is the right pose doesn't mean it is. We need to really start using the connection to our body. And we need to ask ourselves, what is it we want out of this pose? What is it we need out of this pose? And then start from there. Yoga is not something that is set in stone. It's a philosophy, it's a mindset. And it's helping us. It's serving us, not the other way around. You don't practice yoga to get better at yoga. You practice yoga to get better at living. Because you increase your range of motion, your mobility. You support yourself in becoming more present and connecting with your inner thoughts, with your being. And that is all that matters. Everything else is just a sideshow. Slowly start to deepen your breath. Start to wiggle your toes, your fingers. And then you roll over to your left-hand side. You take a deep, deep breath. You sigh it out through an open mouth, perhaps. And then you find your way back up into a seated position. You close your eyes, you leave them closed, whatever. You place the hands together on top of the heart or in front of the heart. And then you thank yourself, you thank your body, your mind, and your breath for supporting you 24/7 during the day. Hopefully see you very soon again. Let me know if you have any feedback or questions or need any other information. And then I wish you a very pleasant evening. Namaste.